I thought I knew my wife until I overheard her at a company party saying she could dump me anytime. One phone call later, her boss was screaming, "What did you do?" But that was just the beginning. What I discovered about her secret accounts, lying friends, and dirty secrets would destroy everything she thought she controlled. She called me furniture. I became her nightmare. My name is Arthur Vance. I'm 42 years old, and I work as a regional sales manager for a medical equipment company in Phoenix, Arizona. 3 years ago, I married Eleanor Dubois, a marketing executive at Henderson Corporation, one of the city's biggest consulting firms. She brought her 19-year-old son, Hugo, from her first marriage, and we had our daughter, Anya, together. I thought we were building something solid, something that would last. The night everything fell apart started like any other company party. Henderson Corp was celebrating their biggest quarterly earnings in 5 years, and the whole thing was held at some fancy hotel ballroom downtown. I'd been to these events before, boring speeches, overpriced drinks, and conversations about market projections that made my eyes glaze over. I was standing near the bar, nursing my second beer and checking my watch. Anya had been fussy when our nanny Maria put her down, and I want to get home to check on her. The music was loud, some generic jazz that echoed off the high ceilings, and the room buzzed with the kind of forced enthusiasm that only comes after the third round of drinks. That's when I heard Eleanor's voice cutting through the noise. She was maybe 20 feet away, surrounded by her usual crew of coworkers. Her laugh was sharp, different from the one I heard at home, more theatrical. "Honestly, girls," Eleanor said, her voice carrying that slight slur that meant she'd had more wine than usual. "I can dump him anytime I want. Arthur's like a safety net. Comfortable, reliable, but not exactly exciting." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stepped closer, hidden behind a group of executives who were arguing about some merger. "Really?" asked one of her colleagues, a woman whose voice I didn't recognize. "Oh, absolutely," Eleanor continued, and I could hear the smirk in her tone. "He takes care of Anya, pays the bills, doesn't ask too many questions. But my real life that starts Monday morning when I walk into this office, my hands tighten around my beer bottle. Monday morning. What the hell did that mean?" I watched her through the crowd. She was wearing the black dress I'd complimented her on before we left the house. The one that made her look stunning. Her team lead, Julian Becker, was standing close to her, closer than any married woman should let a coworker stand. When she laughed at something, he whispered in her ear. She placed her hand on his chest in a way that spoke of familiarity. That's when I knew this wasn't just cruel talk. This was something real, something that had been going on right under my nose. I didn't make a scene. I didn't storm over there and demand explanations like some hot-headed fool. Instead, I set my beer down on the nearest table and walked toward the exit. My mind was already working, already planning. Eleanor thought she had all the power in our relationship. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The drive home from the party felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. Eleanor sat in the passenger seat, humming along to some pop song on the radio, completely oblivious to the fact that she just destroyed our marriage with her careless words. She was checking her phone, probably texting Julian or one of her girlfriends about how much fun the party had been. "You left early," Eleanor said, not looking up from her screen. "I was looking for you during the speeches." "Had a headache," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Figured you were having enough fun for both of us." She laughed. That same theatrical laugh I'd heard at the party. "Oh, I was. Did you see how jealous Janet looked when Julian asked me to dance? She's been trying to get his attention for months." "Julian, of course." I gripped the steering wheel tighter, but kept my expression neutral. "He seems like a nice guy," I said, fishing for information. "He is very sophisticated, knows how to treat a woman properly." She paused, and I could feel her looking at me. Not everyone appreciates that quality these days. The implication was clear. I wasn't sophisticated enough for her. I wasn't treating her properly. According to Eleanor, I was just the reliable safety net she could discard whenever something better came along. When we got home, Maria was waiting in the living room reading a magazine. Our nanny was a godsend, a single mother from El Salvador who'd been with us for almost 3 years. She loved Anya like her own daughter. And more importantly, she paid attention to things that others missed. "How was little one tonight?" Eleanor asked, kicking off her heels. She was good, Mrs. Du Bois, Maria said in her accented English. Went down about 8:30, but she asked for Daddy before sleep. Eleanor shrugged. Kids always want Daddy when they're cranky. After Maria left, I went upstairs to check on Anya. My 2-year-old daughter was sleeping peacefully, her tiny hand clutching a stuffed elephant I'd given her for her last birthday. Looking at her innocent face, something hardened inside me. Whatever Eleanor had planned, whatever game she was playing, Anya wasn't going to be collateral damage. I heard Eleanor's phone buzz downstairs, followed by her quiet laughter. More texting. I pulled out my own phone and scrolled to a contact I hadn't used in over a year. Richard Sterling, Hugo's biological father and Eleanor's ex-husband. Richard and I had only met a few times, usually during Hugo's graduation or birthday parties. He was a decent guy who'd gotten steamrolled during his divorce for Eleanor. I'd always wondered why such a successful contractor had ended up paying so much alimony to a woman who made good money herself. Now I was starting to understand. I sent Richard a simple text. Hey Richard, it's Arthur. Could we grab coffee sometime this week? Need to ask you about something. His response came back within minutes. Sure thing. Everything okay? Just some questions about the past. Nothing urgent. I'll call you tomorrow. I deleted the text thread and put my phone away. Eleanor thought she was so clever playing her little games while I remained oblivious. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated the man she was trying to fool. Downstairs, I could hear her getting ready for bed, still humming that same annoying song from the radio. She had no idea that her comfortable, reliable safety net was about to become her worst nightmare. Richard Sterling looked older than I remembered, but success suited him. His construction business had grown considerably since his divorce from Eleanor, and it showed in his custom suit and confident demeanor. We met at a small coffee shop in Scottsdale, away from both our usual haunts. Appreciate you making time for this, I said, sliding into the booth across from him. No problem, Arthur. You sounded like something was eating at you. Richard stirred his coffee slowly. Let me guess. Eleanor's up to her old tricks. I leaned forward. What do you mean by old tricks? Richard let out a bitter laugh. You really don't know, do you, man? She played you the same way she played me. The late nights, the mysterious business trips, the way she started treating you like furniture instead of a husband. My stomach tightened. Tell me everything. Eleanor has a pattern. She finds a successful guy, marries him, then starts looking for something better while keeping the current husband as backup with me. It was her boss at the advertising agency. She was having an affair for 8 months before I caught them. 8 months. I felt sick. The worst part, she tried to take me for everything in the divorce. Would have succeeded too if I hadn't documented her infidelity. Cost me a fortune in legal fees, but I kept my business and got joint custody of Hugo. Richard pulled out his phone and showed me a contact. My divorce attorney. Isabel Moreau. She's expensive, but she's a shark. If you're thinking about protecting yourself, she's the one you want. I memorize a number. Any other advice? Yeah, start documenting everything now. Eleanor's smart, but she's also predictable. She'll get sloppy because she thinks you're too nice to fight back. Richard's expression hardened. Don't be too nice, Arthur. She certainly won't be. We talked for another hour. Richard shared details about Eleanor's spending habits, her tendency to hide assets, and her skill at manipulating custody arrangements. By the time I left that coffee shop, I had a roadmap for what was coming. That evening, I called Isabel Moreau's office and scheduled a consultation for Friday. Then I started going through our financial records, looking for irregularities. It didn't take long to find them. Isabel Moreau's law office was exactly what I'd expected, sleek, expensive, and intimidating. She was in her late 30s, sharp-eyed, and had the kind of confidence that came from winning battles in courtrooms. Richard hadn't been kidding about her being expensive, but after hearing her speak for 10 minutes, I knew she was worth every penny. Richard Sterling referred you, she said, reviewing the notes I brought. He mentioned you might have a situation similar to his. My wife is having an affair with her department head. I have recordings of her bragging about it at a company party. Isabel raised an eyebrow. Recordings? That's more than most clients bring me on their first visit. I play the audio from the party. Isabel listened without expression, taking notes on a legal pad. This is good evidence of her mindset, but we'll need more to build a strong case. What about financial irregularities? I handed her a folder. Credit card statements from the past 6 months. She's been spending money on things we never discussed. Expensive dinners for 2 hotel rooms on nights when she claimed to be working late. Isabel flipped through the statements. This restaurant receipt is from last Tuesday. Where were you that night? Home with Anya. Eleanor said she had a client dinner that would run late in this hotel charge. Same night, said the client meeting moved to a hotel conference room. Isabel's smile was predatory. Your wife isn't very creative with her lies. This will work perfectly in court, especially combined with the audio recording. She outlined a strategy that was both comprehensive and ruthless. We would document everything, freeze joint assets to prevent her from hiding money, and use her own words against her in custody proceedings. One more thing, Isabel said as I prepare to leave. Don't let her know you're onto her. Act normal. Be the same reliable husband you've always been. Let her think she's in control while we build our case. I shook her hand. How long do you think this will take? If she's as predictable as Richard suggested, probably 2 to 3 weeks. Affairs like this tend to escalate quickly once the participants get comfortable. Driving home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope Eleanor thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She had no idea that I just hired a grandmaster. That night, I watched Eleanor get ready for another late client meeting. She kissed my cheek before leaving. The same casual gesture she'd done hundreds of times before. Don't wait up, she said. This could take hours. I'll keep dinner warm, I replied, playing the part of the beautiful husband. After a car disappeared down the street, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything Isabel had taught me to look for. Eleanor was right about one thing. Monday through Friday was where her real life happened. She just didn't realize that her real life was about to become my evidence. The plan Isabel and I developed was elegant in its simplicity. We would create a fake business opportunity that would tempt Julian Becker into making a critical mistake. Isabel had connections with a private investigation firm that specialized in corporate entrapment. Completely legal, but devastatingly effective. Maria had been invaluable in gathering intelligence. During our weekly coffee meetings, she shared observations about Eleanor's behavior that I'd missed. The late-night phone calls, the expensive new clothes hidden in the back of her closet, the way she'd started talking about upgrading our lifestyle. She asked me to work extra hours next weekend. Maria said during one of our conversations, says she has important business dinner that will run very late. Did she say where? The Phoenician Resort, very fancy place. She says Mr. Julian is bringing important client from California. I felt a familiar surge of anger, but kept my voice calm. Thanks for letting me know. I might have to work late that night, too. Isabel's investigator, a former FBI agent named Detective Pierce, had done background research on Julian Becker. What he found was disturbing, but not surprising. Julian was married to Rebecca Cross, daughter of Henderson Corp CEO. His position at the company was essentially guaranteed through nepotism, but his personal life was a disaster. 2 previous affairs, both covered up by his father-in-law. This guy thinks he's untouchable, P.S. explained during our meeting. But his weakness is greed. He can't resist what looks like easy money. The trap was a fictional real estate investment opportunity. P.S. would pose as a California developer looking for local partners. The meeting would be at the Phoenician Resort, the same place where Julian and Eleanor were planning their romantic weekend. We'll have audio and video recording equipment throughout the suite, P.S. said. When Julian brings your wife to what he thinks is a business meeting, we'll have everything we need. Friday evening arrived with perfect timing. Eleanor spent an hour getting ready, choosing a dress that was definitely not appropriate for a business dinner. She kissed me goodbye with the same casual affection she'd shown for months. Don't wait up, honey, Eleanor said. This could be a very important night for my career. I'm sure we'll be, I replied, meaning every word. After she left, I drove to a hotel across town where Isabel was waiting with the surveillance equipment. We would monitor everything in real time, ensuring we captured every moment of Eleanor's deception. You ready for this? Isabel asked as we settled in to watch the feeds. I've been ready for weeks, I said, thinking about Anya sleeping peacefully at home, unaware that her mother was about to destroy our family. The camera showed Julian and Eleanor entering the suite, both clearly expecting a romantic evening rather than a business meeting. When Pierce introduced himself as the California developer, their expressions changed from confidence to confusion to panic. That's when we knew we had them. Monday morning at Henderson Corp started like any other day. Eleanor left for work in her usual professional attire, still riding high from what she thought had been a successful weekend with Julian. She had no idea that Detective Pierce had already delivered a comprehensive report to her company's board of directors. I was at my own office when Isabel called with the update. "It's happening now," Isabel said. PS confirmed that security escorted Julian to the executive conference room about 20 minutes ago. Eleanor should be next. The recording equipment at the Phoenician had captured everything, not just Julian and Eleanor's affair, but their discussion about using company resources for personal trips. Julian's promises to promote Eleanor in exchange for sexual favors. And most damaging of all, their plan to embezzle from the California development project they thought was real. What about the company's response? I asked. Rebecca Cross found out about her husband's latest affair this morning. Her father is furious. They're not just firing Julian, they're pressing criminal charges. At 10:47 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Maria. "Mrs. Eleanor, come home early." Very upset. She crying and throwing things. I left my office and drove home, arriving just as Eleanor's Mercedes pulled into our driveway. She sat in the car for several minutes, gripping the steering wheel and staring straight ahead. When she finally got out, her makeup was smeared and her hands were shaking. "Bad day at the office?" I asked from the front door. Eleanor looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Pure desperation mixed with dawning realization. "Arthur, we need to talk. Something terrible has happened at work. They're saying I was involved in some kind of fraud scheme. It's all a misunderstanding, but they've suspended me pending investigation." "That sounds serious. What kind of fraud?" "I don't know. They won't tell me anything except that there's evidence of financial misconduct. They escorted me out like I was some kind of criminal." I let her talk, watching as she spun increasingly desperate explanations for what had happened. She claimed Julian had set her up, that the company was looking for scapegoats, that her enemies at work had manufactured evidence against her. "The worst part," Eleanor continued, "is that they fired Julian, too. His wife showed up at the office this morning screaming at him. Something about hotel receipts and private investigators. It was humiliating. Sounds like Julian's marriage is in trouble." I observed. "Arthur, I'm scared. What if they try to prosecute me? What if I lose my job permanently? We could lose the house, Anya's college fund, everything." For the first time in months, Eleanor was looking at me like I was her partner instead of her safety net. But it was too late for that kind of reconciliation. "Don't worry," I said, putting my arm around her shoulders. "We'll figure this out together. Maybe you should call a lawyer just to be safe." "You're right. Do you know any good attorneys?" "Actually, I do. I'll give you your number." I handed Eleanor a business card for Isabel Moreau, the same attorney who had been building the case against her for the past 3 weeks. Eleanor clutched the card like a lifeline, having no idea she was holding the number of her own executioner. 3 days after Eleanor's suspension, Marcus Quinn made his move. He was a mid-level marketing analyst at Henderson Corp, who had apparently been watching Julian and Eleanor's affair for months. What he didn't know was that Isabel and I had been expecting someone like him surface. The call came Tuesday evening while Eleanor was upstairs putting Anya to bed. I answered on the second ring. "Arthur Vance." The voice was nervous, trying to sound confident. "Speaking. This is Marcus Quinn. I work with your wife at Henderson Corporation. I think we need to talk about what? About what I know regarding Eleanor and Julian Becker. Information that could be very valuable to certain parties." I felt a cold smile spread across my face. "I'm listening, not over the phone. Meet me tomorrow at Murphy's Bar on Camelback Road. 8 p.m. Come alone and bring your checkbook." Marcus hung up before I could respond. I immediately called Isabel. A blackmail attempt was always possible. She said, "This actually works in our favor. We can use him to strengthen our case against Eleanor." The next evening, I arrived at Murphy's Bar 15 minutes early. Isabel's surveillance team was already in position. 2 investigators posing as customers, recording equipment hidden in my jacket. Marcus Quinn was exactly what I'd expected. A sweaty, desperate man in his 30s who thought he'd stumbled onto easy money. "Thanks for coming," Marcus said, sliding into the booth across from me. "I'll get straight to the point. I have photos, emails, hotel receipts, everything documenting your wife's affair with Julian Becker. And you want money for this information? $25,000 cash. In exchange, you get everything I have, and I disappear from this situation entirely." I lean back in my seat. "What makes you think I don't already know about the affair?" Marcus's confidence faltered slightly. "Even if you know, you don't have proof." "I have proof." "Show me." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me several photos of Julian and Eleanor entering hotels together, kissing and parking garages, holding hands at restaurants. The images were clear and damaging. "These are good," I admitted. "But I have something better." "What could be better than photographic evidence, video evidence, audio recordings, financial records, and most importantly, federal criminal charges against both of them?" Marcus's face went white. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that your little blackmail scheme just became evidence in a federal fraud investigation. The FBI will be very interested in your photos, especially since they prove you've been stalking federal suspects." I stood up and dropped a business card on the table. "That's my attorney's number. You want to call her before the FBI calls you." Marcus stared at the card like it was a poisonous snake. "This isn't over." "Actually, it is. And Marcus, next time you try to blackmail someone, make sure they're not already 10 steps ahead of you." I left him sitting in that booth, probably wondering how his easy payday had turned into a potential federal charge. Isabel's team had recorded everything, giving us even more evidence of the web of corruption surrounding Eleanor's affair. Maria called me Thursday morning with urgency in her voice that I'd never heard before. "Mr. Arthur, you need to come home now. Mrs. Eleanor's mother is here, and they are having a very loud fight about money." I left my office immediately and drove home to find Eleanor's mother, Genevieve, standing in our living room, waving a stack of papers at her daughter. Genevieve was a sharp woman in her 70s who had always been cordial but distant with me. "You stupid girl," Genevieve was shouting when I walked in. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Mother, please lower your voice. The neighbors will hear." "Let them hear. Maybe they should know what kind of daughter I raised." I clear my throat. "Ladies, is everything all right?" Genevieve turned to me with an expression of disgust. "Arthur, I'm sorry you have to see this, but my daughter has been lying to all of us for years." "Mother, please don't." "Don't." "What?" "Don't tell him about the trust fund your father left you. The one you've been hiding from your husband for 3 years." My blood ran cold. "What trust fund?" Genevieve handed me the papers. "When Eleanor's father died, he left her a substantial inheritance in a trust fund. She was supposed to tell you about it when you got married, but she decided to keep it secret." I scanned the documents. The trust fund was worth over $200,000 with monthly distributions that explained how Eleanor had been funding her expensive lifestyle and secret trips with Julian. "Eleanor, is this true?" Eleanor's face was flushed with embarrassment and anger. "It's my money for my father. I didn't think I needed to tell you about it. You didn't think you needed to tell your husband about a trust fund worth more than our house. The money was supposed to be for emergencies for Anya's future. But this morning, I discovered that Eleanor has been draining the account to pay for hotel rooms and expensive dinners." Genevieve continued. "There's less than $30,000 left." I felt the familiar rage building, but kept my voice level. "Eleanor, we've been struggling to pay for Anya's daycare while you had access to this money. I was saving it for something important." "Important like what?" "Romantic getaways with your boyfriend." Genevieve's eyes widened. "Boyfriend? Eleanor? Please tell me you haven't been having an affair." The silence that followed was deafening. Eleanor looked between her mother and me, realizing that her web of lies was finally collapsing. "This is ridiculous. You're both ganging up on me when I'm already dealing with false accusations at work." "False accusations?" Genevieve asked. "What false accusations?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording from the company party. Genevieve listened to her daughter's voice describing me as disposable furniture, her face growing harder with each word. "You disgust me." Genevieve said when the recording ended. Your father would be ashamed. She turned to me. Arthur, I'm changing the trust fund beneficiary. Whatever's left will go to Anya's college fund. With you as the trustee, Eleanor has proven she can't be trusted with money or marriage. Eleanor stared at us both, finally understanding that her comfortable life of lies and secret money was over. The look of panic in her eyes told me she was beginning to realize just how much trouble she was really in. Judge Alastair Croft had presided over family court in Phoenix for nearly 20 years. And according to Isabel's research, he had a troubling history of favoring wealthy defendants who could afford his particular brand of justice. What Judge Alastair Croft didn't know was that Isabel had been preparing for him specifically. Eleanor's father and Judge Alastair Croft were old golf buddies. Isabel explained during our pre-hearing briefing, she's counting on that relationship to influence the custody decision and asset division. What's our strategy? We're going to expose his corruption before he can rule against us. I've been working with the State Judicial Review Board for 3 weeks. The hearing was scheduled for Tuesday morning. Eleanor arrived with a high-priced attorney she'd somehow managed to hire, probably using the last of her trust fund money. She looked confident, almost smug. As we entered the courtroom, Judge Alastair Croft took the bench with his usual arrogant demeanor. This is a complex case involving allegations of adultery, financial misconduct, and child custody. I've reviewed the preliminary documents, and I must say some of these accusations seem quite serious. He was looking directly at me when he said it, clearly indicating which way he was leaning. Isabel stood up. Your Honor, before we proceed, I have a motion to file regarding potential judicial bias in this case. Judge Alastair Croft's expression darkened. What kind of bias, Counselor? The kind that involves offshore bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. Your Honor, bank accounts that show payments from several defendants who appeared before your court over the past 5 years. The courtroom went dead silent. Eleanor's attorney looked confused, but Eleanor herself had gone pale. That's a serious accusation, Ms. Moreau. It's a serious crime, Your Honor. Federal investigators are already reviewing the evidence. Judge Alastair Croft's hands were visibly shaking as Isabel handed him a folder. Inside were bank records, wire transfer receipts, and a list of cases where his rulings had favored specific defendants immediately after receiving unexplained payments. This hearing is adjourned, Judge Alastair Croft said quickly. I'm recusing myself from this case. He left the bench so fast he nearly tripped over his robes. Within an hour, news broke that he was under federal investigation for judicial corruption. Eleanor stared at me across the courtroom with an expression of pure terror. She was finally beginning to understand that every move she'd made had been anticipated. Every advantage she thought she had was an illusion. Ow, she whispered. Simple, I replied. I hired better people than you did. 2 days later, we appeared before Judge Sophia Petrov, a respected jurist with an impeccable reputation. The new hearing lasted less than an hour. Judge Sophia Petrov awarded me full custody of Anya, ordered Eleanor to pay child support, and divided our assets according to the evidence of her financial deception. Eleanor lost everything except supervised visitation rights and a mountain of legal debt. 18 months later, Anya and I were living in a new house across town. Far from the memories of Eleanor's betrayal, our daughter was thriving in her new daycare, and Maria had become more like family than an employee. Hugo visited regularly. He'd chosen to live with his father, Richard, rather than deal with his mother's ongoing legal problems. Eleanor had been sentenced to 2 years in federal prison for fraud and embezzlement. Julian Becker got 5 years and lost everything when his father-in-law discovered the full extent of his crimes. Marcus Quinn, the would-be blackmailer, received 18 months for extortion and obstruction of justice. Daddy looked Anya called from the backyard where she was playing with a new swing set I'd installed. At 3 years old, she was happy, healthy, and blissfully unaware of the drama that had surrounded her early life. Very impressive, sweetheart. I called back, watching her pump her little legs to make the swing go higher. Isabel and I have been dating for 6 months. She was nothing like Eleanor. Honest, straightforward, and genuinely interested in building something real rather than playing games. More importantly, she adored Anya and treated her like her own daughter. Any regrets? Isabel asked, joining me on the patio with 2 cups of coffee. About which part? Any of it. The investigation, the trap, destroying Eleanor's life. I thought about it for a moment, watching Anya laugh as she swung back and forth. No regrets. She made her choices, and I made mine. The difference is I made mine thinking about Anya's future. What about forgiveness? Forgiveness is for people who are sorry for what they did. Eleanor's only sorry she got caught. That evening, after Anya was asleep, I sat in my home office reviewing the final legal documents from the divorce. Everything was settled, all assets divided, all debts assigned. Eleanor's name had been removed from every account, every deed, every document that had once bound our lives together. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I hope you're happy. You destroyed my life. I stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it without responding. Eleanor still didn't understand that she had destroyed her own life. I had simply documented it. I looked out the window at the desert sunset, thinking about the future instead of the past. Tomorrow, Isabel was moving in with us officially. Next month, we were taking Anya to Disneyland for her 4th birthday. Next year, who knows? Maybe a wedding, maybe more children, maybe just more of the quiet happiness that Eleanor had never been able to appreciate. I had learned that trust was indeed something you gave freely in marriage, but only to someone who deserved it. Eleanor had taught me the difference between love and manipulation, between partnership and exploitation. For that education, however painful, I was actually grateful because now I knew what real love looked like, and I was never going to settle for anything less again.